Hi Stoners, welcome back to part 2, what are we calling this? Mike's Broken Train.
Yeah, repairing a family heirloom, I guess.
Yeah, quick sum up in case you didn't watch part 1, I can't imagine why you didn't. But this is Mike's toy train, it's a Hornby 00 Castle class locomotive. It was given to him by his father, it was his father's before it was his. It hasn't worked since the 60s, we're trying to work out why not. And here we are with the motor assembly detached from the chassis but still connected by wires. And basically you join us at a very exciting time because we have to decide what to do next. What we'll do next, in fact, is, and this is one of the many joys of the modern world, using the smartphone, we'll just take a quick picture of that and where the wires go so that when we try and put it back together, we know what it was supposed to look like. There it is. Picture. You can zoom in, obviously, to check your wiring and your positions and so on.
So that's logged.
That's logged. I can go there. Okay, so what we're deciding is, we've got here, I was talking in part 1 about how you can find all the old service sheets, and we've now found the one for the motor, and we've zoomed in on the business end of the motor where the commutator, the magnet and the brush assembly is, because that's the bit we're probably going to take apart now if we have the courage.
So last time we managed to get the wheels slightly spinning, so now that you've taken it apart, what do you think's happening in there?
Well, experience suggests that when we take this apart, if we dare, we will find the commutator and therefore the ends of the brushes caked up with dried out old oil, because you only need to get a spot in there and over 5 decades it will just cover everything, and that affects conductivity and that tends to, you know, just ruin the motor, but it's quite easy to fix. There is still a risk that in the chassis where the axles run through the actual casting, which is the return path of the electric current in the whole system, if they get covered in oil, which they might well be, and it dries out and goes gooey, that is a problem. And that's a little bit trickier because we wouldn't actually have to take it apart, I don't think, but we might have to soak it in a fairly aggressive cleaner like brake cleaner. But let's see.
Okay, so there's not like a sub-chassis below this?
Not on this one. There are on some of the trying ones. You can lift a plate off and then lift the whole wheel assembly out, but you have to be really very careful because if you put it back in the wrong position with the connecting rods, you know, one high, one low, the whole thing will get knotted up and it'll, you know, you'll end up drop kicking it into a canal. Excuse me, I'm going to just finish the wine.
Yeah, by all means. So are you confident we're going to be able to get this back on the track as soon as possible?
And it's like you're talking to a builder now. I'm not just going to say yes. But I've never been defeated by one before. So I think looking at our service sheet, the brush holders, that's here, those look to be an interference fit in the casting, the zinc casting at the end. So you could probably get them out, but I'd rather not do that because that would require a bit of force, and force is bad. I would rather remove those 4 screws, lift off the spring assembly, which should come away in its entirety, I think, and then lift the brush holder end of the motor off and expose the commutator. Then we can clean it up.
And I guess that risks not messing about with any of the soldered stuff.
Exactly.
As well.
We don't have to unsolder anything. We don't have to unscrew the mountings of the springs, which could affect their tension, which is quite crucial. Looking at it on the screen, we are going to remove those 2 screws and those 2 screws. That whole assembly that you see exploded there will come away as one, so all the wiring will remain intact. That bit will slide off the end of the motor, exposing the commutator, which is there, which we can clean up. And we will also be able to make the brushes come out. If you remember from the last episode, they're stuck because they've been in there a long time. Once we've knocked those out, we can clean up the ends of those as well. But I've removed the springs, slackened off the springs, I should say, so they're not going to interfere with, there you go. It's not going to interfere with removing that.
Okay, that was meant to happen, yeah.
Yeah, that's meant to happen. It just happened a bit suddenly. They will slide off, but we're going to leave it as assembled as possible. So, but just keep an eye on those. If they fall on the floor, they'll be quite hard to find. Happy?
Yes.
Right, so let's try just a slight slackening on each screw. That one's free. That one is free. The last one will be stuck, obviously. Oh, that one was actually slightly loose.
And once we're in there and we start cleaning it, is it just a case of with a brush or?
We will use, there's a very clever tool that I wish I'd had when I was younger. I know it's here because I saw it just now. There it is. That's a fiberglass pencil, as it's called. They're actually just shards of fiberglass, but it scrapes little copper contacts beautifully clean without damaging them.
Can you show the little camera?
You have seen this before on the reassembler, and I normally dip it in a little pot, but I don't know if I've got it with me. Maybe I have. No. A little pot of actually garage brake cleaner. I don't know where the hell. I haven't been in here for a while, so we might have to improvise slightly. So I've slackened all the screws. Nothing is under tension, agreed. The springs are released, they're slack. The brushes aren't being pressed. That moves.
Okay. So it's just a case of how far they're threaded in, and then as you come clean off.
I say they move. Yes, that's moving. Agreed, that's going to come off.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to make you take them out.
Okay. Is this just in case something
This is
severely
something I
goes
don't know
wrong?
about. If you hear a little noise that sort of goes ping, like that, that's something flying across the room.
Okay, I'll do it in stages like you did.
I once dismantled one of the window switches in my old 308 Ferrari, which wasn't working. They insisted that you just bought a new switch, but I could see that it would come apart if you prized certain bits of the plastic apart in a special way. And I did it successfully, but not realising there was quite a powerful spring inside it. And it made that noise in my bunker, which is quite a big space. And there were 2 copper contacts, 2 little springs, 2 little pins, and a pivot bar, all flew across the bunker. And amazingly, I found them all. It only took a day.
Okay. 3. Is this magnetic, this little tool?
No,
Because it seems to stick quite well to it.
but it may have become slightly magnetised through hanging around here, the magnets of the motors.
Yeah, see, like that.
What you should do, and I do have one, but I couldn't find it just now, in there somewhere is a brass screwdriver, which is quite good for working around the motor, because otherwise the end of the screwdriver is constantly being pulled.
Okay, and then this just lifts off?
Should do.
I'm scared.
You've got to keep it square as you lift it.
Okay.
There you go.
Wow.
Well done.
My heart is racing right now.
Look at the crap on there.
Okay.
That should be...
There's a wee lump on that
Oh,
side.
yeah, that should be shut. Ooh, good God. That should be shining like a piece of gold, and it's black and disgusting. That's amazing.
So it looks like you were 100% right about it
Yeah.
just being scummy.
I don't think I've ever seen one quite as scummy as that.
So I guess like a car, how often should you service a model train like this? Do
Well,
you have a sort of routine with this kind of thing?
I think if you use them regularly, it's not an issue. If you don't, a bit like cars again, stuff sits where it is. Look at that.
Oh, yeah, that's bad.
That's
Show us.
properly disgusting.
So what is that dirt? What is that build-up?
It's actually, well, it's a combination of oil that's got in there and the carbon from the brushes. The brushes are effectively like a sophisticated version of the fillings of a pencil. And they run against the commutator to constantly reverse the polarity of the thing, which is what makes the motor spin. And they decay.
Look at that in there as well. That is bad.
Gee, unbelievable.
Get that spring back where it was. Which way around do they go? That way?
Yes.
Yeah.
You'll know if you've got it wrong when you try and put it back together.
Yes. Okay.
Now, let's get there's a little magnifying glass in here. Each winding, you see the 3 windings?
Yes.
They're still connected to the commutator.
Yeah.
Tiny little thread of copper
Strand,
wire.
Yeah.
And when you're cleaning it, you have to be very, very careful not to knock those off, because it's a very, very tricky resoldering job, because it's so tiny.
Yes. So is that little brush delicate enough to?
Yep, as
do
long as
that
you
job?
as long as you stay clear of that bottom edge. I mean, there's actually a solid piece of coal almost on this.
Very realistic.
Be very, very careful on the commutator because it's soft. Look at that. Can you see? That's pure toy train cack right there on the end of my screwdriver.
Once we get this all cleaned up and running, do we have to be quite careful with how you send the electricity through it, or will it just?
No,
go?
it should be absolutely fine. What we will do is re-lubricate it because you could hear when we got it spinning earlier, it was a bit grindy. That's because these are very dry. Like there is oil on there, but it's more like charcoal dust than oil now. So, first thing is the segments of the commutator. There are 3 of them, are separated by a tiny slot. And they get carbon buildup in them, and you just need to drag it out. You can use a pin, you can use the end of a knife like this, but don't press. If you press in it, you will form a burr at the edges of each segment, and that burr will act like a little file as it goes round, and it will grind the brushes to dust in 5 minutes.
This is so intense.
It is quite intense. So, and it's the light's not brilliant in here, but if you can see, right, there's one slot.
Yeah.
Just get the edge of the blade in. I'm not pressing. There, did you see that bit of cat came
Little
out?
flake, yeah.
There's a bit still on the end of the blade.
Mm-hmm.
That's the carbon build-up in the slot. So again, not pressing. There. World of cack. Wipe on trousers, and the last one is
Yeah, that's it.
there.
Yep. It's amazing. You can see it clearing up. It suddenly becomes uniform. Is it brush time, or is there another stage?
I normally have a little bit of kitchen roll to make the initial wipe, and I don't think I have.
Try and run and get some toilet roll.
Do you mind?
Yep.
You're the youngster. See the cack?
Yeah, that's not great at all.
Properly cacky, isn't it?
Are there bits that potentially the cack has got into that we can't access and will need kind of flushed out by the grease, or will everything being
that may be true of the chassis.
Okay.
With the motor, we should be able to sort this so they haven't damaged the little wires. Now we can take that magic pencil. You see that's starting to come up shiny.
Yeah. So should this be very shiny by the end of it, or just?
Yeah, it should look like a new penny.
Perfect. Do you ever work on watches? This feels like something that's
I've
very
done
close to that.
clocks. I haven't done too much on watches because they're actually a bit too small for me, and I've got the DTs. You see how shiny?
Yeah, it's coming.
Can you see
really
this,
nice.
viewers, how shiny this is becoming? You can.
Yeah.
And so will you need to do the same to the silver parts on top of the coils, or
No,
are they free to?
those are fine.
Okay.
But we do have to do this to the ends of the brushes. And if you were doing this really seriously, you would remove the brushes, put them in a little pot of solvent, like brake cleaner again, and leave them for several days so it leaches the oil out of them. We won't have time to do that, but with a bit of luck, they're not too bad.
One thing I was thinking, is this worth a decent chunk of cash? Are these collectible now?
They are collectible.
Especially in this condition.
It is in fantastic condition. I've never sold any because I've tended to have kept all the ones that I've been given. It's not going to be enough to change your life.
Okay.
And I wouldn't sell it, to be honest, because we're restoring this on the basis that it's an heirloom and you want it to work.
Yeah, I'm not going to cash in off of this, don't worry.
But it might be worth, I don't know.
Touched by James May on eBay.
So, well, that would help sell it. It might be worth 70 or 80 quid.
Okay.
In fact, as you've got the whole set, haven't you, with the box and everything?
Yeah. Some really nice carriages, actually.
Yeah, it could be worth a bit more.
That's a tank of fuel in the Mondeo.
I'd keep the train. Is that getting shinier?
Yeah, that's coming up nicely. Do you need to do the same to the sort of cylindrical end to it, or is it just the sides?
I will do the same to the cylindrical end just to prevent that bit of oil running round and recontaminating it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so essential from an electrical point of view, but...
It's a proper heavy piece of kit.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it?
So this is the magnet here.
That's the magnet,
and it rotates around there.
In some ways, having dismantled that, we should remagnetise the magnet because we've exposed it to the air. It's effectively not got a keeper on it anymore, which is a bit poor, but I don't have the remagnetising machine with me, I'm afraid. There's a good little test you can do, I'll show you in a second. Ooh. It's very nice.
Can you see right down the crease with that?
Down the gaps?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all nice and crisp. That's good. Okay, now we'll just take our little bit of bog roll and remove that bit of cack from the end. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
I got a bit of fluff stuck in there.
Was it the same with other toys back in the day? So this is obviously better made than modern Hornby. Was it the same with Airfix and Lego and Meccano? Were they just better built back then?
No, actually, no, I would say modern Hornby is better made than this in that it's much, much more precise. The motors are much more sophisticated. They have 5-pole skew wound motors, which makes them run much more smoothly and much more authentically. But what was lovely about Dublo in the olden days compared with the early Triang stuff is that it was made to sort of model makers' standards rather than toy makers' standards. Okay, nice and smooth and shiny. Geography of parts.
It's a bit mucky in here.
Yes.
That's pretty bad.
Have a look.
The springs are going to fall off again. That needs like
Good
a proper
God.
brush in there.
Doesn't it just? Holy crap. Yeah, it's dark. Can you see inside? I can't lift it up. Well, I can.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like someone's teeth haven't been to the dentist in a very long time.
It's pretty horrible, isn't it? So let me just look at the diagram again. So that and that. Those are a push fit, so we don't want those to move. We can't lift that whole assembly off because that is soldered.
Yep.
So, what we need to do is try and poke the brushes. That one's nearly come out, look. In fact, it has, hasn't it?
Yeah. Oh wow.
Right, there's one brush covered in cack.
That is caked. Okay, so there's one on either side, is there?
Yeah.
Okay.
That one's going to come out
Yeah,
as
there
well.
you go.
There it is.
Yep. Wow.
There's your problem. As a general rule, if you can avoid taking things apart, it's best that you do. The other thing you could do, you can use one of these paintbrushes to loosen it up a bit. Actually, I'll get you a slightly smaller one than that. Hold on. Stand by. Situation update. We have dismantled the motor. Here is the armature and the shaft with the worm gear on the other end. We've cleaned up the commutator. Mike has cleaned out this zinc die casting, which was absolutely rammed with cack. I've never seen
You
one
can
like
see
it.
the remnants here.
Yep, there's a bit of residual cack, and that's only probably a quarter of it. So what we'll do next is a little bit more cleaning up, then we'll reassemble the motor. We will test the motor in isolation, make sure that's good. Then we'll worry about the chassis. Then we'll put the whole thing back together. Then we'll stick it on the track and see if it goes. Bet you can't wait. So the crucial bit on the brushes is right to get them all clean, but that end, which makes contact with the commutator,
Okay.
that's quite blackened. And since we don't have our solvent, because that's disappeared, we can rub them with a small rat tail file, very, very, very fine one, or a tiny little piece of very, 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 very fine emery paper.
So in a perfect world, you'd use something like brake cleaner to get rid of that muck.
That's what I do. I tend to soak them for, usually several days. We can use that piece of very already worn out, pre-worn out emery cloth. So looking at one of these, now they're obviously, because the commutator is cylindrical, the ends of the brushes are actually curved.
Okay.
To accommodate that. It doesn't entirely matter if you lose that, because once it's run for a bit, they will assume the correct shape again.
Okay, so there's not too much worry that you'll kind of blunt off the end too much or anything.
No, it's nice if you don't, but it's not the end of the world if you do. But I'd give it a wipe with that first, just because there's still a bit of oily cack on the end.
Sure.
Whilst you do that, I'm going to take the pipe cleaner. There it is, and just gently run it through the brush holders. Is that an extra fat pipe cleaner or something? No, there you go.
What I kind of like is on a real steam train, I imagine if you leave it this long, it would be caked in charcoal and all this black crap, and yet this little model is exactly the same, just covered in black rubbish.
It is. It's effectively carbon. We're not very carbon neutral here. Look at that.
Oh, wow.
Muck and filth everywhere, Mr. Warwick.
Still, lovely bit of kit.
It is. It's fabulous. Right. Toy train grease. We have several types. That one is Electrolube. That's conducting grease. That's PTFE grease, which I'm going to put on the two ends, a very, very tiny blob. Oh, I'll tell you what else we can do. Often you will find that the motors need to be remagnetized, because these old magnets, unlike the modern neodymium ones, they fade with time. But a good way of seeing how good it is, if you put a screwdriver on it, if you can pick it up, just about pick it up with a screwdriver, which we can, the magnet is basically good enough. So I don't have to go and search for the remagnetizing
that's good.
jig. God knows where that is.
So is this old school grease, like your little pots here, or is this brand new stuff?
No, this is pretty old. This isn't as old as, say, that screwdriver, but it's probably 20 years, no more, 30 years. So the old adage with lubricant amongst engineers is felt but not seen. So we just really do need a tiny speck on the end of there.
Amazing.
No more than that, and I want to try and avoid touching the commutator. Let's make sure there's no obvious cack down in the end of that magnet.
Nearly in. There you go.
That's in. Okay, now.
Do we need the schematic up now?
Now, I think I can remember because of our geography of parts. I just want a tiny speck of. This is really crucial, this one, because you need to lubricate that end of the shaft where it goes into the little brass bearing, like that.
People in the comments are going to go absolutely mental for some of these quotes.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? It's disgusting. But you don't want to put a lot on there, because otherwise it will run out over the commutator, and then before you know it, we're back with the problem we had in the first place.
You couldn't put less. I've never seen so.
That is a very small amount, but it's a very small place. And then hopefully
my heart's beating really fast.
there you go, it's on. It's on.
Lovely.
And it turns. So
bolts back on.
Yep. Screws, please.
Sorry,
Screws.
screws.
So dark ones at the bottom,
Yep.
shiny ones at the top. Oh, so exciting. And I'm going to give the ends of those a final polish.
Do you believe in a diagonal formation when screwing things back in place, or are you not that bothered?
Oh, but you mean in terms of the order of tightening?
Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And half do them up and then nip them up to finish.
Yes, sir. Even the little screws are top quality. You
Yeah.
feel it. Really nice little things. I have a feeling they're going to be very fiddly to put back, those ones, the brushes.
Yeah, they are. But God willing, we will prevail. I think that was Hugh Dowding said that originally about the Battle of Britain.
You always say Battle of Britain quotes, but I've never actually seen the film, so I never know.
What is wrong with today's young people?
Is that good? Does it hold up in 2019?
Yeah, of course it does. It's got real aeroplanes in it. It's fantastic.
How does it compare to Dunkirk? Because I thought that was bloody awesome. But
Did
I
you?
know
I thought it was a bit dull.
Did you like the bit when the Spitfire glided over at the end there?
I thought it glided slightly unconvincingly long way.
It's Tom Hardy, he can do absolutely anything.
No, Battle of Britain is just... I mean, there's some dull bits in it, like Susanna York goes pouncing around in her pants. You know, who wants to watch that? You want to see real Spitfires and Hispano-Bouchons having dogfights. This is the problem with the steel screwdriver. You can feel it being dragged away by the magnet.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why the brass one is better, but I'm not sure where it is.
I'm worried about putting them back the wrong way. I'm annoyed that they flicked off.
No, but the correct way, we can actually see it from the diagram, is...
Where are the springs?
there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, so it's
the
hook at the
hinge
back.
hook should be that way, shouldn't it? Is that right?
Hook should be on the left, looking at it square on.
That way.
Yes, yeah, that way.
Yeah, because the hook rests on the chassis, and then you put an extra turn.
So that's why it was sort of spring loaded when it came
Yeah.
off. Okay. Cool, that's fiddly.
It is fiddly. Get that as far as there, but keep your finger in position so that if it flicks off, it will only go as far as your finger, not over there. White fingers, should really clean them. That's the slotted end of the brush, that's the polished up
Yeah.
good end of the brush.
Does it matter what orientation they go in, or is it universal?
Well, it does, because there's a slot that will align with the, is that the, that's the flat,
Yeah, that's the
isn't
one
it?
we've been using it.
The light is not good, so use the end of the screwdriver just to orientate the slot.
Yeah.
And then
Cool, that is fiddly.
am I in?
Nearly, you're askew at the bottom.
Where's
Can we torch it?
Yeah. Oh, it's so
It's not
close.
quite. Yeah, it's just not quite straight on.
Oh, I think I accidentally knocked it into position then, didn't I?
Yeah, we're in the same position there. It's almost like it. Does it need? Should it be straight on, or does that bottom bit need to kind of bend in?
No, it's because the brush isn't quite lined up.
They need to be more skewed to the right of it.
Yeah. So it needs to be there.
Yeah.
Did that move? Tiny bit. That's better, is it?
That's it,
That's
there we
yes.
go.
Okay. Oh.
That was like a scene from Mission Impossible.
Right, same on the
Same
other
on
side.
the other
Can
side.
you show us that, James?
There's a slot in that brass sleeve for the brush spring to rest in. There's also a little slot like the head of a screw in the brush itself, which should align with the spring so that it doesn't rotate. Getting those lined up is quite fiddly. So now we have to do the same on the other side.
Take 2. Is it the exact same orientation for the spring?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that goes there, rests on the plate, and then goes round once, and we leave it there for... Ooh.
Nicely held. Yep.
Leave it there for now. Brush, slotted end, shiny end. Align slot, overdone it.
Oh, that looks very close.
Let's see what happens.
Yes, first time.
Yep.
Yep.
Beautiful. Okay.
Is there a way of testing that now, or
Yes.
do we have to?
No, I think we can, if we clip up to the 2 brush terminals. Here we go, everybody. Great excitement. Try and stay awake, Lucy. What I would normally do, but we'll cut it a bit short so that the people watching this video don't go and end it all, is I'd get this running and leave it running for sort of half an hour or so.
Amazing. Listen to that.
It's quite nice, isn't it?
Is that as smooth as it should be? There's a bit
pretty
of
good.
rattle there, but
It will improve as it runs for a bit.
and that burning smell is okay. That's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
the
that's
electric
okay.
motor doing its thing.
Why has it stopped?
Is that slight lack of grease, or
It's more like to be more cack coming through, I think.
from where?
Don't know. Ooh.
Something's overcoming it with friction.
Well, it doesn't feel tight. This is why you clean the brushes in solvent for 2 days, you see, because I think it may just be that there's still too much oil in those brushes, but I don't have a spare set for Dublo. Should we just bury it in the garden and have a pipe?
Well, I mean, we've fixed it, but just maybe not to the standard that you would look for.
I don't like to be beaten by this stuff. See, to be honest, chaps, I don't think we can do this without the proper cleaner.
Should we try it anyway?
No, honestly, I know it won't work. That's far too stiff. I can barely turn it with my thumb. It won't be turned by that little 1/1000th of a horsepower electric motor. So I did tell you this would be complicated. Nobody believes me. I'm always right. Now the problem is so the motor is working, not brilliantly, but it's working well enough. I've now identified that there's a really tight spot in the chassis. That front axle is free. There's a bit of slack, so you can feel them individually. That's a little bit of side-to-side movement, and it moves. The middle one is a little bit sticky, but it moves quite well. That rear one is as stiff as hell, and in fact I can see. Yeah. So we need to.
Pretty bad in there.
Yeah.
So even though the middle one is technically the sort of driven one with that gear,
Yes.
it can overcome the stiffness of
Exactly, through the connecting rods. Now, if we could take the connecting rods out, we could test them separately, but on Dublo, I didn't know this because I'm not an expert on Dublo, but those are actually pinned in. They're interference fit pins, not screws, so we can't easily take that apart. And I'd be rather reluctant to be honest. I think we can clean the chassis up without taking it apart.
Yeah, just
We
down
can
that.
run a bit of cleaner into there and into there, and we can get it fine, but we can't do that here. Gee, it's frustrating.
So a local convenience store is needed then.
Yeah, or somewhere in the bunker.
Okay.
There's brake cleaner somewhere in the bunker. I mean, I don't know where, but... Have you got that service sheet picture still?
Yeah.
Have you got the other one for the whole...
Oh, the whole...
Go down to where the blue ones are. It says Castle Class Loco 2 rail, number 9, yeah. That one. I'm just looking at the shape of the chassis block. So that go, yeah. So that is soldered. Yes, that's bloody annoying. So I'm afraid that's sort of brought us to a bit of an end of Mike's broken toy train repair for today, because in order to sort that out we need the proper cleaner and the little tray and the special brush, and that means we have to leave the pub and retire to the bug out bunker. See you next time.